So I was going to make a video about how the older I get, the less I need to win, yeah? And I like that idea, it sounded mature, measured, yeah? Like something said by a man who had finally learned to let things go, which would have been nice, yeah? But then I started writing it, and the more I wrote, the more I realised that I'm not sure I can honestly say that yet, yeah? I don't think I've stopped needing to win. Not fully. Maybe not even close. Yeah? I think I've just started noticing the need more clearly, yeah? And that's different. It's not as impressive, but it's probably more true, yeah? So the honest video probably isn't, the older I get, the less I need to win. The honest video is probably why do I still need to? And because I do, yeah? So sometimes, not all the time, yeah? But enough that I can't just sit here and pretend that I've grown past it. And I should probably try and be clear about what I mean. I don't mean proper winning, yeah? I don't mean sport or games or competitions with rules and points and someone actually keeping score, yeah? I mean, I still like winning those. I'm not pretending I've become some peaceful, emotionally evolved man who doesn't love slamming down that pick-up 4 card in Uno, yeah? If I'm playing to win, obviously. I'm not dead. I'm talking about a different kind of winning, yeah? The quieter kind, the everyday kind, the kind where nobody has announced a competition, but something inside you starts acting like there is one. Yeah, it could be an argument, yeah, just getting that last word, that correction, that moment when you suddenly need someone to understand exactly why you were right, yeah? Those tiny little moments where pride walks into a room, like it's been waiting all day for this, those moments. And I still want those wins sometimes, probably more often than I'd like to admit. And there are moments where I can feel it happen, yeah? It might be something someone says or a question that lands badly, a misunderstanding or a tone that I didn't like, or just that half-second feeling of being made small, yeah? And something in me just stands up immediately, like, right, here we go. You know the one, yeah, that one. That there's a little switch, isn't there? That need to answer and correct and just push back and clarify, yeah, and win. Basically, that's what I've been thinking about, yeah. Not every fight is wrong. That's too simple. Some fights matter, yeah. So some lines do need drawing. Some conversations do need having, yeah. Sometimes you do need to stand up for yourself. Sometimes silence isn't wisdom, it's just fear keeping quiet. And I don't want to become someone who avoids every difficult conversation, calls it maturity. That's not growth, that's surrender with better branding, yeah? I'm talking about the other ones, the moments where deep down, you know the fight in front of you probably isn't worth having, but you still want it, yeah? Not because the point matters as much as you're pretending it does. It's, the whole... It's not because the whole future just depends on whether you get this sentence exactly right, but because stopping feels like losing, yeah? And losing just feels like something you can't quite allow. And that's the uncomfortable bit for me, yeah? You can dress it up well, most of us can. We can make it sound reasonable, yeah? I'm not arguing, I'm just explaining, yeah? I'm not being defensive, I'm just clarifying. I'm not trying to win. I just want the truth to be understood. And sometimes that's true. And sometimes the truth does need to be said, yeah? So sometimes the explanation does matter. And sometimes you've been misunderstood in a way that genuinely needs correcting. But sometimes sometimes I'm not protecting the truth, I'm protecting myself. Or at least some older idea of myself, you know, the part of me that hates being made to feel stupid, the part of me that hates being dismissed, the part of me that hates someone walking away thinking they've got one over on me, yeah? The part of me that thinks silence looks like defeat. And that's the part I'm starting to notice more, yeah? Not control perfectly, you know, not fix, not rise above, just notice it, yeah? Just catch it a little earlier than I used to. Feel that little spark and think, hang on, what am I actually trying to win here? Because sometimes the answer is clear enough, yeah? I might be trying to win respect, or, you know, correct something that genuinely matters, or just protect that sort of boundary, you know? When that's true, fine, have that conversation. If that conversation actually needs to happen, have that conversation, say that thing, draw that line, yeah? But sometimes the answer is different. So sometimes I'm trying to win the feeling of not being small, of, you know, not being wrong or weak or just the person that I used to be. And sometimes I'm not trying to win the argument at all, yeah? I'm just trying to win proof, you know, proof that I'm not stupid, or that I can be pushed around, or just proof that I won't just lie back and take it, you know, that nobody gets to make me feel like that anymore. And problem with that is that the person in front of me may not even be the person that I'm really fighting, yeah? That they might just be the person who pressed that button, yeah, who flicked that little switch, that we say, yeah? And that's a horrible thing to realise, because it means that the fight in front of you isn't the real fight, yeah? So sometimes that argument in front of you is tiny, but that feeling underneath is massive. So someone says something small, yeah, and it lands somewhere old. You know, the question stops being a question, and suddenly you're answering every person who's ever made you feel like you ever had to justify yourself. A misunderstanding stops being a misunderstanding, and suddenly you're defending your entire character. A challenge stops being part of that conversation in front of you, and suddenly you're back in every room where you ever felt dismissed or spoken over or just overlooked, yeah? And that doesn't make that reaction good, yeah? It doesn't excuse it, but it does explain why it can feel so urgent. So when that feeling underneath is old enough, yeah, that the next fight can feel like the one that finally fixes it. But it won't. That's the annoying part, yeah? Winning this argument probably won't heal the old one, yeah? Getting that last word here won't undo the rooms where you didn't have one. Proving the point today won't make younger you feel safe. It might just give you a small hint of relief for about 12 seconds, but then life carries on, and now there's a mess. Yeah, because some wins are expensive, and that's what I'm starting to understand, yeah? Slowly. Usually after buying them, yeah? You know, so some wins, they cost the mood in the room, yeah? So some cost trust, some cost closeness, some cost half an evening, and the peace that you were trying to build, yeah? And when you're in the middle of it, you don't always see that cost. You just see the point, you see the correction, yeah? You see the thing that can't be allowed to stand, so you go after that win. And sometimes you get it, yeah? You win that argument, you prove the point, and then you're left sitting there with that win, wondering why everything feels worse. And that is, it's irritating, because being right should feel like it's enough, yeah? If it feels that you're right, then surely that should settle it. But it doesn't, does it? You know, not always. Because being right is only one part of the situation, yeah? Your tone matters, timing matters, your relationships matter, even the context matters, yeah? Whether the person in front of you can actually hear you matters. And whether you're speaking from truth or from pride matters, yeah? And that last one is a bastard, because pride is brilliant at sounding principled, yeah? It doesn't walk in and announce itself. It doesn't say, hi, I'm your ego and I'm going to ruin the next 20 minutes. It sounds so much more, what's the word? Noble. It sounds much more noble than that, yeah? It tells you you're just standing up for yourself. You're making sure that they understand that you're just refusing to be disrespected, yeah? You know, and maybe you are, but maybe you're not. Maybe you're trying to win a fight that nobody else knew that they were in. Maybe you're trying to collect an old debt from the wrong person, yeah? Maybe you're trying to make this moment pay for something that happened years ago. And that's the question that I keep coming back to. It's not, should I fight? It's, am I in the fight I think I'm in? Yeah? Because some fights are real, yeah? Some fights deserve you, but not every fight does, yeah? So some fights are habit, some fights are just bait. But some fights, they're those old fears that are trying to stay in charge, yeah? I've fallen for those more than once, plenty of times, really. And I've defended things that didn't need defending. I've explained things that didn't need explaining. I've corrected things that should have been left alone. I keep doing that. Probably like just then, actually. You know, I've carried on conversations long after the useful part had died. And that's not me being wise. That's me, you know, I'm noticing the damage afterwards, yeah? Maybe that's where this honesty starts. Not with being better, but with noticing the bill, yeah? Noticing that price, that you've got to pay. Because for a long time, I think I only counted the cost of losing, yeah? You don't think about the cost of winning. I know what it was like to feel small and misunderstood, yeah? I know what it felt like to feel like someone had got one over on me. So I fought those feelings, yeah? Hard. But I always noticed what I was spending to avoid them, yeah? My calm, you know, your kindness, just your evening, yeah? The chance to let something small stay small. And that one's important, because not everything has to become a thing, yeah? Some things can just pass. Not every comment needs picking up. Not every misunderstanding needs a court case. Some things can move through a room, yeah, and just disappear. That doesn't come naturally to me. I don't think it ever has. My instinct is to deal with these things, you know, to challenge it and correct it and finish it and to get it clean and done and settled and make sure nobody leaves with the wrong idea, yeah? But life is very rarely clean. And people are very rarely corrected into understanding, yeah? And that's another annoying lesson. You know, you can be completely right and still handle it badly. You can win the words, but you lose the person. That's the sort of win that I'm trying to question more, yeah? Not because I've mastered it, I haven't, but there's still times where my mouth gets involved before the wiser part of me is caught up. There's still times where I know I'm only halfway into the fight, and then I realise, you know, this isn't about what I said it was about. That I know this is about an old hurt. Yeah, I know this is about pride. I know it's about me trying not to feel small. But I think even noticing that halfway is progress. Yeah, I not as much progress as noticing it before I open me trap. I think, yeah, that would be ideal, but halfway through is still better than 3 days later, isn't it? Yeah? So maybe the question isn't, how do I stop me needing to win? Yeah, I think that's too big. It's too unrealistic. Maybe the better question is just, what am I actually trying to win? Yeah? So if I'm trying to win respect, maybe I need to just draw a boundary, yeah? If it's honesty, maybe I need to just have that conversation properly. If I'm trying to win proof that I'm not small, then I need to be very careful who I make pay for that feeling, yeah? That's the difficult bit, because the people closest to us can end up paying for fights that they never started, yeah? You know, a tone can land wrong, yeah? Then a question feels like a criticism. And, you know, then you're just not responding to them. You're responding to history and calling it a conversation, and nobody wins that. But if the person in front of you was never the real enemy, what did you actually win, yeah? I don't enjoy that question, because I know there's been times where the honest answer is not much, yeah? You won the moment, but you lost the mood, yeah? You made the connections harder. You proved your point, yeah? But you missed the person, and I don't want to keep doing that, yeah? I don't want to become harmless, you know, I don't want to become endlessly patient. I don't think that's a realistic goal, yeah? I don't want to pretend that anger is always wrong, yeah? Anger has a place, defiance has a place. You know, that refusal to be treated badly has a place. And there are times when fight is exactly the right response. But I want to get better at knowing what fight I'm actually in. I think that's the real thing. Yeah, not less fighting, just better noticing. Not just questioning the win, yeah? Not avoiding the conflict, just understanding what conflict I've actually walked into. If I can notice that even a little earlier, I might get to choose differently, yeah? I might not have to make every correction out loud, or just let pride spend the evening because it found an excuse to come out. And I might just be able to pause long enough to ask, you know, is this necessary? Is it worth it? And maybe that pause is the win, yeah? It's not a big, dramatic, satisfying win. You know, it's not the win where someone admits you're right and apologises for doubting your obvious brilliance, you know, which, to be clear, would still be nice, yeah? But But it's that quieter win, yeah? Where you don't hand the steering wheel over to that most wounded part of yourself. The one where you still have that choice, you know, whether you say that thing or you don't say that thing. Or you can, you know, you can draw that line, or you can just let it pass, just let it go. But you choose, yeah? You don't just react and call it truth. You don't just defend and call it strength, yeah? That's where I think I am with it, yeah? I'm not beyond the need to win. I'm not even close, yeah? I'm just more... What's the word? I'm more suspicious, yeah? Of it than I used to be. More willing to question it, I guess, yeah? And maybe that's okay. Not okay as in leave it alone, yeah? Not okay as in there's nothing to look at, but okay as in maybe this is where the work actually starts, yeah? I'm not saying to fix the thing. I'm not saying I'm going to sit there calmly and say I don't need to win anymore, but maybe just stop lying to myself about where I am with it, yeah? Just where you can still admit, you know, that I still do need to win sometimes. I still feel that switch flip, yeah? I'll still want that last word. But maybe now, sometimes, I can hear the question underneath it, yeah? And what it might cost. Because some fights do matter. And some fights deserve everything you have. But sometimes old pain just picks the nearest target, the wrong target. And not every fight deserves you, yeah? You choose how it ends.